So have the chest wall off. Okay, chest wall is built the same as the abdominal body wall, except that we also have the ribs and sternum. And so they've been cut away. And now, so that's exposing some of the structures. We can see superficial structures. And let's just go ahead and take a tour of the structures we can see superficially now. Okay, so let's start in the chest. And there we go. Now we got our light back. Beautiful. Okay, so a lot of these membranes are still the serosi, we could say. Here's the heart inside of the pericardial sac. Gorgeous. And look at this thing. Look at that stuff, right? You see that kind of thick stuff on it that's embedded in the pericardial sac? That's actually thymus. It's a gland. And the thymus gland is where our T cells, those are white blood cells that act like the generals of our immune system. And so the thymus gland is where the T cells are made. So think of the thymus gland as like West Point of the immune system, right? Sort of like West Point and the Naval Academy and the Air Force Academy all in one. So anyway, these are lungs, okay? And by the way, before we leave the chest, we're going to see more thymus actually in the throat, because the thymus glands of fetuses, infants, and children are huge, of course, because they're training their generals. There's our diaphragm again, and if I pull on it, right, you really can see that we have membranes that are really separating the left thoracic cavity from the right thoracic cavity. And those membranes are collectively called the mediastinum, and they're the reason that a lot of times if you get a lung puncture on one side, it doesn't puncture on the other. It doesn't collapse on the other, I should say. So now we're in the abdominal cavity, and we can have a look at some of the superficial anatomy there. Big old liver. It's always really big. That's just how it is. And then a blood vessel that we can see sticking out of the liver. You remember that we bisected that, okay, to be able to fold back the posterior flap of the abdominal wall. That's the umbilical vein. Then we have a bunch of intestines here. Yeah, so on the pig's right side, notice that the tubes are like super coily and smaller in diameter than over here on the pig's left side, where they're larger. It's still coiled, but because they're larger, not quite as coily. So large intestine on the left, large left, small on the right. Yeah. And then when we were peeking over on the left, you saw this kind of finger-like structure poking out from behind or below the liver. That's the spleen. It's actually a circulatory structure. It stores red blood cells. And then the other structure that you can see here, that is the guy right here is the urinary bladder. We're going to be dissecting the urogenital system. And then on either side of the urinary bladder, okay, hasn't been dissected away yet, these are umbilical arteries. So this is blood going out, okay, to the placenta, and then of course returning back from the placenta by the umbilical vein. That's it.